We will start in 5 minutes, and the rest of the people can join in as the session progresses, because we have a 1 hour slot with Tushar. So great, guys. Thank you all for your patience. Good morning, everyone. My name is Deacon, and on behalf of i4C, we would like to welcome you all to our Gyaan Class 2021 series of webinars. There will be 6 episodes over 6 weeks, every Wednesday at 11 a.m. These webinars will exclusively focus on the startup journey. i4C continually focuses on student innovation, entrepreneurship, and seeks to solve the question of what comes next for a student in his or her journey. With successful events like Smart India Hackathon 5 editions, Smart School Hackathon 2 editions, Gyaan Hacks, and now Gyaan Class, we constantly endeavor to bring you the best platforms to tune your knowledge levels. We would like to thank Bootstart Co-working for powering this event through their channels and network. Bootstart is a premium co-working player based in Pune city with 13 locations in Pune and a total of 17 locations across the country. They have quite a large presence. They offer amazing value for money services for clients who choose to work out of their spaces. You should check them out on social media. They have great offers currently running. A few ground rules. Please mute yourself at all times. For any questions on the Zoom platform we are currently on, please ask it in the chat box. For any questions while accessing through YouTube, please ask in the comments section. We will endeavor to answer all your questions, if not now, a little bit later. Now, with great pleasure, I would like to introduce our speaker for the day, Tushar Shetty. Tushar is CEO of Ideas to Impact Hub, which is one of the leading tech incubators in Pune. He is also a partner at Spring Up Capital, which is into early stage global VC and is also an accelerator. He has acquired a depth and breadth of experience from having worked in incubators and early stage VC funds. He has been advising and consulting early stage startups across the globe around fundraising and go-to-market strategies. He is also on the board of various government and global incubators as a selection committee member. Tushar is a strong research professional who has graduated from Institute of Company Secretaries of India. He is currently running open innovation programs for Fortune 500 companies, identifying and forging strategic partnerships with cross-border seed funding right up to Series C startups, and is advising C-suite executives on the impact of emerging disruptive technologies on its brand and users. Welcome, Tushar. Thank you so much for being here. And over to you, Tushar.
Thank you so much, Deacon. I think this was a great introduction and covers most of the things that I've been doing. Firstly, I would like to congratulate you on this the initiative that you have started. Basically, this creates a great platform for entrepreneurs who are new founders who are trying to learn something and want to build their own companies. So congratulations on this, and really happy to share my experience and my learnings of working with so many companies and so many entrepreneurs today at this session. I've kept the session a little broad, and I'll open it up for more of Q&A from you guys so that I can answer those. Most of the things are not a very good rocket science, with a very basic, simple principles that if you follow, you would be able to do your startups really very well. So I'll just start my presentation now. So the topic here today is how to start a startup. I think, before even I go to how to start a startup, I think I need to go a little one step behind and ask you, why do you want to start a startup? So even if one of your answer is to become rich or make money, so this is not the best place for you, because there are way much easier things that you can do in your life to earn that money, or much without pain, much you can earn a lot of money. But startup is not for that. I think the founders that I meet go through extensive amount of pain and a lot of struggle. So there are much easier way to kind of make money and not just startups. So now again, coming back to the topic on how to start a startup, there are various topics that I could cover up, but I've just summed it up into 4 main topics. So the 4 core areas of a startups are basically idea, the product, the team, and the execution. In the further slides, I'm going to talk about all of these in detail, and you'll learn more about those things. Okay, the first one is idea. I always say that the idea should come first and the startup should come second. You should have a brilliant idea before you end up having, a decision towards starting up some kind of a company, because it's very important to have a very clear vision, very clear idea before you start something and you start working on that company. You need to understand for the next 10 years or so, you're going to build that company, and that idea plays a very critical role in building that organization. So how do you go about building or finding that idea that's going to be a $1 billion idea, right? So how do you go about finding those ideas? So I think it's very clear that you need to make something easy for your customers, something which people are chasing or people are there's a lot of difficulty around solving that problem. You need to make it very easy for them. I think that is how your idea is going to be a successful idea. And if you look at our portfolio companies, they are doing a very similar kind of thought process. So if you look at Itanta, which is a no-code platform that's just pulling out the important data from these manufacturing machines and giving out to the produce managers or the product managers to kind of build the reports around it. And you will see, just like that, we have Deep Tech, which is solving a major problem of radiologists by giving them a very precise data with the help of AI. So you need to understand that the problem that you're trying to solve should make the life of your customers easy. So that's when they will buy your product, right? If you take up some of the case studies, from the ideation and how people actually went and started up their idea, I'll take up two case studies from my two of my friends' startup that they have started. One is from a very successful company named as Airbnb. So Brian started this startup in 2007. A very successful startup we all know about, but you don't know how the journey whole started, right? In 2007, he moved to New York City. He wanted to start some kind of a business, and he rented up an apartment there. But for some reason he couldn't pay up his rents, and it was the whole downtime, and the whole economy was facing that economic crisis that time, and he was not in a very good situation to pay up his rent. And he always figured out what he could do about that. In 2007, that year, New York had a very large convention, and he was in that city probably, and all the hotels and the motels during that period were booked. It were all full, and people were having a difficult time to find any hotels. And that point of time, Brian came up with that idea, and he just got some couches, and he moved some of the couches to his place and accommodated people and called it as air beds, and that's how the whole idea concepted. I think this is a very simple idea, but it took up the whole revolution and became $1 billion company. Just like that, we also have What Three Words. What Three Words is started up by one of my investor and plus a mentor and an advisor to me. So he invested in a company named as What Three Words, and what they do simply is they just convert the GPS location of a particular area to a three-word sentence. It could be just table, spoon, and fork, and you will just read exactly at Ideas to Impact. So it's as simple as that. People face a lot of challenges when it comes to finding the exact location. There are certain locations where the internet even doesn't work. So how do you go about that? And What Three Words for a very simple solution. And GPS numbers are very tricky. You need sharing that 8-number codes, you might end up landing somewhere else. So it's very difficult, right? So What Three Words created it very simply, and they solved a very simple problem. And it was a very simple idea which created a $1 billion business. They are also now invested by Mercedes. So all the new Mercedes cars which are going to be launched, I think everything is going to be powered by What Three Words. So these are the typical examples which you should consider, while you're thinking about any of the ideas. It's very critical that your problem should be solving the mass problem. So let's talk about once you have identified that idea, what is that you need to club along with these ideas. The size of the market. Let's say if you figured out that this is the idea that you kind of want to work around with, what is the size of the market looking like? Is the size big enough that you should try to work and solve that problem? Or is it just limited to you and a few friends and families? Also try to understand how is the growth of the market looking like in the next few years. So as an investor, we will always be interested to look at the opportunities which has a future potential, right? So how does the market looks like in the next 10 years? Is it a growing market? Is it growing 2x, 3x, 4x, whatever growth it has? Depending on that, you should try to kind of work on that idea. So is the growth strategy is the growth strategy aligned to what you're trying to build? And once you have the idea, and do you think that this idea can be taken to a next level and can be scaled at that level, is something that you need to also figure out. Defensibility strategy, I think everybody needs to very much focus on this. You need to be very well prepared that your startups has ups and downs. Your idea might have some kind of injuries and breakouts. So you have to figure out that how defensible you can be in terms of your idea that turns into a monopoly. I think this is a very good debate that a lot of people would have with me, that why to create something which has a monopoly, but I'm always in the favor of creating that monopoly. One of my company is trying to create that. I think, when I recently talked to them, I think they had a discussion with one of their customers, which is ABB Group, and ABB Group had a tough time to onboard them because they couldn't find any other competition for them. So I take this as a very good advantage for the company, because if you have an idea that is the need of the hour and also something which creates a monopoly, then you're obviously on the top and people will love to buy your product. So once you have figured out that idea, let's say if you have figured out to create some kind of a brilliant idea, why do you think? Okay, can you guys see my screen? Deacon?
Yeah. We can see your screen.
Okay. So why now? So this is a very common question which you should always ask yourself and your startups, because this is a very critical question for any startup. Timing plays a very critical role in any company's progress. We have seen companies failing, companies doing very well in terms of their business with the timing. If you look at company like Zoom, they're extensively growing right now during the COVID situation also. And if you look at some other companies, they are falling back. And that is why every time you need to answer this simple question of yourself is that, is it a perfect time to start this idea? And why you need to start this today and not 2 years down the time, or not why not 2 years before? So this will actually help you to understand a lot about what are the timings, why this is a good opportunity, and why do you want to pursue this startup further. To give you an example, I think one of my friends' company is Airmeet. And Airmeet, if they had to be answered the similar question, I think Airmeet is a platform that actually creates the whole offline experience of doing events to online. And they have a very fantastic product. And why the product fits in right to this timing is very right is because the whole country and the whole nation and the whole universe is going through this pandemic situation, and people are moving towards the online ecosystem. Everything is now happening online. So now this is the right time for them to be in the platform. Why not 2 years before? Because 2 years before, everything was offline. Everything was, people were not very interested to do events online, because everyone wanted that one-to-one connects, and that is how people could relate much faster. And the online webinars were not something which people were very interested to join. That's how you have to compare your idea. You have to keep asking yourself these questions, and debate yourself always that whether this is the great time to start something. So let's say why, your answer for why is already done. So now the next question comes on, how do you validate the idea? I've been a very great fan of Google in terms of the organization that they have built. They are a very innovative company, I must say. They've been doing entrepreneurship across in the organization, and that actually makes them the largest company now, because they keep on experimenting, and that's how the innovation drives in the organization. So Google also has a very interesting program, which is the Google Design Sprint Workshop. So it's a very simple process where you try to kind of validate your product. So there are simple tools which are also available online. You can go and check. But I'll just cover up in the sum that how this actually works. Once you decide on the idea, you start working, you plan accordingly. You need to build a small prototype around it, right? A small prototype which could actually help you to take it to your initial customer and validate your product with them. So when you talk about validation, it could be with your, let's say if you're building up a fintech application for the bank, right? So how do you go about validating that product? So there are plenty of people who are there in the ecosystem. Let's say Deakin was the former RBL vice president working with these startups. So he was very much involved. So you need to go to people like Deakin and, I know a few people in ICICI, RBL, Citibank, etc. So there are people who are working with these corporates to align these startups and innovation. So you need to go and talk and try to validate, try to talk to these some of the manager level people, and also try to talk to the people who are directly going to be your buyer, or who are directly going to be the kind of people who are going to buy the products. So this will give you a very clear validation. Once you should only proceed to build up your product only when you are validated, because without validation, you're wasting your time. And what if at certain point you realize that this is not something that your customer want? You then have to just you wasted a lot of time, a lot of energy, and plus a lot of money around it. So when it comes to idea, I think there are a couple of points that I clearly want you guys to don't do. I think the first point is that don't do something which is a clone of a product which is already there, because that doesn't work. If you look at companies like Amazon, people do try to build something like Amazon, but have you heard about anybody which is becoming successful? So you need to build a clear, unique product, and you need to create a very good differentiator for your product, and that is how you're going to create your own presence, and people are going to be using your platform. If you try to create a clone of your product, I think nobody is interested. I think there is already a company ruling the market, and you won't stand a chance to do something new. The second point is don't worry about your competitors. A few startups, always jump onto me asking whether that, do we share this idea with somebody? There's always a chance that people might copy my idea, or people might just come up with a similar idea. So believe me, I think most of the people don't copy your idea, and we don't have. So if it's a good product, people don't copy your idea. This is very common. I think people don't have that kind of thought process to build that product, and people usually won't copy that idea. Even if you look at the reports of companies that have failed earlier, or companies that have not worked very well. So these companies have not worked very well because of not focusing on building up the product, but they focus on something else, and not because of the competition. Very hardly few companies, I would say only 2 to 3% of the companies would have actually failed because of the competition. Most of them, are failing because of the lack of design, the products, etc., what they're building on. So don't worry if you have competitors. Go and share your kind of ideas with multiple people. Get those active feedback, learn from them, and kind of validate your product. So once you have a clear validation of your product, once you have decided that this is the idea that you want to go ahead with, and now this is the product that you want to start building, what next? So now you have to build a great product so that the customers will start loving it, right? So it's always said that great ideas lead to great product, and great products eventually leads to great companies. So, but the question comes on that how do you build that great product? So the great product will only come in when your customers would love it, right? When your customers should actively love it, they buy from it, and they kind of share that with across all their networks, and they therefore more people to join their product. So I think that is something which is important, and that is something which people should focus in the very initial phase. There's always a saying that you should have a small set of people who should love your product than having a lot of people liking your product. I believe that's very true, because when you have a small scale of people who are actually loving your product, it's very easy to scale that to a larger set. Then converting the people who like your product in the large scale to convert them to love you, because that's a very tricky part. So you might want to work with companies. You want to work with your customers, with a small group of customers, and to try to work very close to them. I think that is very important. learn from them, learn what they want, and build products that customer wants. You should not build products that you want. I think that is a very critical point. A lot of founders do make mistakes. I've seen companies making products which they feel are good, but without doing any analysis of the market or taking up feedbacks from their customers. They should also try to take active feedback that will actually help you to kind of build a very good product, and eventually the people will start liking it. So I think there are a lot of books which actually are available on how to build products that customers love. But I would say that there are a few points that you should always consider while you're on these things. So data is your guide. So don't trust on your guts. I feel that this will work. I feel that this app should be working this way, etc. It's not the way to go. Always trust on the data. I think the more the data, the more the kind of inputs that you get from the people who have started a similar business, similar kind of applications, is that what will help you to build a good product. And the second point, which I see a lot of challenges, is that staying detached, think like an investor, remain objective. I think most of the startup founders get very much attached to the product, and they think that they're very rigid to any kind of change that comes from the market. You should not do that. You should not marry your product at all. You should be accepting. You should think like an investor, and you should be very objective towards all the change. I think that will keep your product, from a market perspective, people will start loving it. I think that's very important. Be the user yourself. I think I believe most of the founders definitely do this, but you should do that very frequently. Let's say if you're building up a gaming app, it could be any small poker app, for an example. You should play that app throughout the day. You should try playing that with your friends, and you should actually. So this will help you a lot to understand on what are the gaps, what are the problems, why I'm not able to play, why I'm not getting excited, etc., etc. So be your own user of your product, so that you step into your customer shoes and you learn from them that what exactly your product needs. Ask your users the right questions, stay close to your customers. I think most of the startup founders that I speak to are actually doing this process. And this has been working very well with most of the founders, and you need to do the similar thing. Being the founder, you need to stay very close to your customers. I think if you're not close to your customer, your product is not going to be the product that your customers are going to love. So you need to be on the sales calls. You need to be on the customer support calls. You need to be on every other calls that is required to be in touch with your customers. That is the only way I believe that you can understand what your customers really want, and you can build a product that your customer would love. And the last point is, do away with frills, simplify it. I think I meet a lot of founders who have 10 things in their app, and they do it because they got their feedback that people want this, people want that, and you are kind of building those. You're putting up all of these onto your platform and kind of flooding it with the features. I think that is not the way you should. If you look at any other company, any company that you love or you've been following, look at, for example, a Paytm, or look at any other simple platform. They started with a payment gateway. Right? It's a very simple one thing that pulled in all the people together, solving a basic problem of payment and then putting all together. So I think you should not flood your applications with a lot of features. Keep it very simple. If you look at iPhone, why was iPhone so popular in terms of UI? Because it was such a simple. Anybody can use it, and unlike in the early days when the smartphones were very difficult to be used, I think iPhone created a simplicity which created a lot of people to use iPhone. So again, I think one point I would just talk here, which I've not mentioned on the slide, is that when I talk to most of the founders, I think most of them spend a lot of time on their product. I think most of the founders that I interact with, the successful founders they interact with, they usually have a lot of time that they spend on meetings, actively taking feedbacks, closing the feedback loops much faster, and building up the products that the customers would actually want to have. So this is very important. You need to work extensively in the beginning stage on your product. I think that is going to be a key for the success. And if you're not working on that, and if you're working on everything else like marketing, sales, business development, team hiring, and not building, and you're not working on the product, I think things are going to be very complicated for you guys. So I think focus a lot on product, and if everything from a product is good, I think if your product has a very good potential, it will automatically sell. Then your focus towards other activities will go eventually down. So you don't have to rush to get investors. You don't have to kind of look at more people from a sales. You get automatically sales calls, and this has actually happened. So to give you an example, one of our portfolio company, they're completely focused on building up the right products. They took up their phones, they called up their customers, they sat at their offices, they made a lot of time interviewing their customers so that they could build a very good product. And right now they are spending zero money on marketing, but they are already making a 500K USD revenue. So I think the core objective is, if your product, if you build a good product, I think it automatically sells. The word of mouth publicity happens, and people definitely want to use your product if it's a good one. So I think you should always focus on your product. Okay, so I think team plays a very critical role in any of these startups. I think most of the time when you talk or you hear any of the investors saying something, it's about the team, right? So team has been always on the top line of any of the investor, any of the kind of people who are evaluating your company. So how do you go about finding that right co-founder? So I think there are few things that you should do, and it's obviously a very tricky part. Just like finding out the right idea, it's actually a very difficult part to find the right co-founder. It's like a perfect marriage, and it's always something that you should never rush on, because you should take your time. Even if you're a single founder, it's okay, but it's better to have a single founder and not to have a bad co-founder. So how do you go about finding that right co-founder, right? So clearly write the job description for your JD or for your co-founder that you want to onboard in. So you cannot have your best friend, you cannot have your sister, your brother, or somebody to be the co-founder. So you need to have somebody who fills in the gaps that you don't have in the organization, and you need to clearly set that job description very well, so that you can put that. You can fill that with your co-founder. So I've seen a lot of times that most of the things happen from working in the product companies. This is my personal experience and the companies that I've incubated recently. So one of my portfolio companies came from Veritas. Some of them came from Pubmatic. Some of them came from Mindtickle. So these are all product companies, and you find relevant product guys there, and that is very important. So when a lot of people ask me, how do I go about finding I think you should initially start working with product startup. You not just learn about how the product works, but you also meet the like-minded people. I've seen a lot of big people coming up with the unicorn startup coming up from these product companies. So I think you should always consider working in a product startup in the early days, so that you find somebody relevant to be the part of your organization. Be a part of a lot of seminars and events. We have been doing a lot of events and seminars to do these kind of mingling around with startups. I think this is a very critical part. With these events, you find like-minded people, and you might end up having a co-founder for yourself. And be actively involved in a lot of seminars. Their LinkedIn, their tools, their groups, Startup Weekend, etc. Their Push Start, Ichai. A lot of these platforms, due to COVID, I think they are doing it all online, but still you can be a part of those. They also have networking sessions. You can try to be, part of those. Deacon is organizing all of those sessions. You can be a part of all of these sessions to be, you can find out your co-founder. Attend local university and entrepreneur activities. I think this is also a very critical part. I think I've been a part of a lot of college incubators, and I'm also advising a lot of them to set up their incubators internally. And I found that a lot of times you find very good talent out in the college universities who are building their own startup, failed their startup because they don't lack those kind of knowledge about doing business. So you can actually pick and choose from these kind of people, and you might end up having a very good resource. One of our startups in Ideas to Impact is basically he's a third year, fourth year student. They're fourth year students, and they're building a fantastic cricketing app. I think they've been doing this for a while. They've been doing coding for a while. They have their own services company, and they're generating a good amount of revenue, serving good clients, working on a big projects. So I think you'll be able to find it. And now, being that a lot of college incubators are coming up with a lot of high-end technologies, I think it might be much more easier for you. So let's talk about some more points about what you should look in a team. So don't rush on building a team and getting a co-founder. I think I've covered up this point earlier also. So it's okay that you wait for some time, and we have seen that people don't find the right co-founder, and this has happened with one of our companies also. You can just wait, and it's no rush that you need to build that co-founder thing on the very beginning. And also, I would say that don't rush on building the team in the initial stage. Try to do most of the thing by yourself. Don't get a lot of team, because that will create a lot of cash burn for you guys. And I think that is not the very ideal way to proceed. So, and the second part is, if you don't have somebody who is a kind of a person who is a technology person, or who knows the domain very well, I think you should get somebody onboarded as soon as that. So it could be a co-founder, or it could be somebody who has those expertise, and it can be a founding team member. This actually helps from understanding the market and also understanding the domain. So don't hire senior members in the beginning. I think I've learned this from a lot of startup founders, that you should not hire somebody like a senior vice president or senior member or senior salesperson to be the part of the team, because that is not going to work in the initial. You might want to do that in the later stage, but the initial sales and the initial sales are going to happen through most of the co-founder. And I've seen that in most of the companies. They've stayed lean. 2-3 people maximum is what they have. And at some points, I've just seen 2 people working on their ideas. So it's always better to not have a large team, to have a small team in the beginning, and try to do maximum of things with them. Okay, so I think the next question is very interesting on how do you, once you have identified the team, once you have identified the idea, and once you have identified the product, how do you go about executing those ideas? I think it's very important that the CEO or the person who is leading the organization sets a clear vision for your company. He needs to clearly identify that what is the vision, and set up the targets or the vision which are achievable. I don't want people to set some targets which are not achievable at all. So you should be very realistic with your vision, and I think you should place it very well to the entire team. Once that is done, I think the second important point comes is, how do you raise capital? One of my very close mentor and one of my early bosses, Shashank, is going to anyways take up a session on raising the capital investments. But I'll just quickly tell you that what is the right time when you should go and raise money. A lot of time founders come to me saying that, okay, this is the idea, and they don't even validate those ideas, and they just come to me saying that this is something that we have built. Would you be interested to invest in this company? I think that is not something which is going to work. You need to understand that you need to do a lot of your back-end process. You need to create that whole product, get confident about it, have some initial traction, build a good product around it, and then come to somebody to raise capital. And truly honest, I think most of obviously there are exclusivities on these kind of things, and there are there are times when actually people have raised money just on the ideas, but most of the time it won't happen. So you need to be very realistic that you need to have an idea, have something which built around it, validate it with at least a POC or something, build a product, get some initial few customers to try that product, have somebody paying that product, and then approach an investor to get the money which is required to scale that startup. So if you do that, I think the investor will be much interested to talk to you and not just willing to invest. So the third point is the sales and the GTM. I think sales remains the most top line things in my list. I think I don't advise people to kind of raise money in the very beginning. I advise them to kind of do their sales and GTM first. This creates a lot of confidence, and this also creates a kind of visibility and validation for me that this product is actually going to work. Our startups, and it's not that I'm not against investment, but I think if you can do it without investment, that creates a lot of impact. You don't need that kind of money. Specifically in B2B companies, you don't need those kind of money to scale that amount. So it's always advisable for people to focus more on sales and GTM and not to focus more on raising the money. Because if you're doing good sales and good, I think the investor would run behind you to invest in your company, and that I have seen those kind of things happening. You have to evangelize your company every time. I think one of the key thing is you're going to be a chief evangelist officer of your company. So you every now and then you have to evangelize your company. You have to look at the details of the company and start working on what is working and what is not. So hire and manage team. Again, it comes under the execution part. You have to hire a great team, hire great managers, etc., and try to manage those teams. This will all come once you raise money, once you have sales in your company, and there is a lot of progress that you're making. Make sure that the entire company executes and creating cultures right. I think this is a very critical part, and founders should make sure that they set up the culture very right. The organization, in the early stages, it's very important. If the culture is set up for good quality products, if the culture is being set up for good customer support, if the culture is being very set up for hardworking, etc. So I think that remains, and that is very critical for any of the startup to make it successful. So keep the culture as good as possible, because that's going to be the foundation of your organization, and that's how your company is going to grow in a few years. So again, I just wanted to go back on the GTM part. When we also have an initiative which we call it as GTM Dialogues. So in case if people have already started up and there are products which are already there built, you can go and check our website, which is GTM Dialogues. This is a community that we have started to help entrepreneurs with GTM, where we have onboarded all the GTM professionals, the channel partners, the resellers, etc., to work around it. So I think you need to have a rock solid GTM plan. And what we have done in GTM Dialogue is we have tried to cover up stories, and we have covered experience from founders who have executed it earlier, to share their journey around it. So I think these learnings will actually help you to form a very good GTM plan. So this makes a lot of sense, and you from other people's mistakes, you can actually you can learn a lot and can try to avoid those mistakes in your organization. And a couple of points which I would like to add here was, if you should have somebody when you're starting up the whole journey, I think you should also look at some kind of mentors and some kind of incubators, support system that you can have. There are TIE has a lot of mentoring programs or session that they keep on doing, so you can be a part of those things. So we are one of the incubators here in Pune. If you have a very good idea and you have a product which is already there in the market and you think that you need support, we are very happy to help you out. We have a very decent program which we offer to our company. Our companies have been doing really very good, and our models have been working successfully. So you can definitely reach out to us as well. But try to have somebody who can kind of mentor you. And if you're a first-time entrepreneur, it's very important to mentor you or to guide you so that you can be on the track and you can kind of take up your startup journey from there. So with this, I would like to end up my presentation. I will open up for more of Q&A. I've kept it more of broad. So in case if you have any questions which are related to your startup, or if you want me to answer any of the questions, I'll be happy to answer those. And, you know, you can even connect with me on LinkedIn. Probably I've just shared my LinkedIn coordinates and my emails as well. So in case if you want any suggestions and ideas on your startup, feel free to reach out to us. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Tushar. The floor is open for anybody who has any questions to ask Tushar. We can take question and answer for about 5 minutes. So please feel free to ask questions. This is the right moment. So guys, are there any questions that you would like to ask to the speaker? Okay, so Rahul has asked, how do I determine whether I am capable of starting a business?
Okay, so I think this is something that you have to try and you have to figure out on your own. I think this has a lot of in detail discussion which is required with you, obviously, Rahul. I think you need to figure out on your own. I think the best way is to go on the field, try something, create an idea. I think I've already set up the foundation on how do you find those ideas and kind of work on those ideas. Try to find the best idea that you can and probably start something. It's okay if you fail, and most of these startups do fail, but there are a lot of learnings that you get from those, and you can continue doing it again, because that's how the whole thing starts.
So what is the opportunity in the field of influence
marketing?
Marketing, yes.
So I think influencer marketing, I'm not sure about how this influencer marketing is actually going to work, because, you know, I've been very, so a lot of people come to me, you know, saying that, you know, a lot of B2C products that we are trying to build, people have been very particular talking about, you know, how you can influencer marketing, etc. So to be honest, I think if you focus more on the product side, you don't need influencers or any kind of people to kind of help you with that kind of marketing. It majorly is going to be the product that's going to work very well. So even if you do a lot of marketing, you spend a lot of money, if your product is not the capable enough to solve the problems of your users, I think all the influencing marketing that you're planning to do, it's of no use.
Okay, we missed one question from Rennie, who said, can you explain more about how to validate an idea using Google?
So Google has a very interesting program, which is Google Design Sprint. I used to run those design sprint workshops earlier with the name of Untangled Start. These are very interesting tools. You can go and check on the Google as well. So these are some of the tools that helps you to build a small prototype around it. These prototypes are basically the idea that you have in mind. Let's say if you're trying to build a gaming app, with some kind of design sprint, you can actually build those early validating prototype, which you can go and validate with your early customers. I think there are tons of tools which you can use, and depending on the what tools or what kind of product you are familiar with, you can start using those tools and start working on that.
Tushar, thanks. There's one question. I don't know if it's relevant, but I'll still ask it. Rakesh has asked, can you give some insights on equity dilution? Some companies such as Zoho refrain from doing so. How do we decide when is the right time to do an equity dilution or not?
Okay, so I think it all depends on. So again, I've always been on the favor that you should not raise any investment, you should not dilute any equity in the very beginning, because that's your company. And if you're not, so Zerodha is a very good example, right? Zerodha is a bootstrap company, Zoho is a bootstrap company, and they're doing very well through their profit. The best scenario is that if you could create a model very similar to Zoho or Zerodha, because that's something which is a very successful model. But at certain points, it's not possible to kind of do that kind of, scalability is not possible without that kind of money. And at that point, you might need the external capital. So, and it all depends on company, whether they want to scale to that level and they want to dilute their equity or not. But I think at some or the other point, most of the companies would dilute.
Okay, great. So I have a question from Abhiraj, which is asking, does Ideas to Impact Hub only incubate IT product and service companies, or is it open to other industries in the startup space?
So I think we are more technology driven. So earlier we were all B2B because of the fund that we had. But right now, I think we are more open to B2C companies as well. So we have already one company which we are working on B2C. And so more of, it could be something around technology. It could be a normal food delivery app or something like that as well. But I'm saying that there will be some technology element into it, right? So I think without technology, it's not going to be a scalable product.
Okay, fantastic. So Tarun has asked how to find like-minded people any effective way. I think this is a repeat of the earlier question, but you please answer it. How to find like-minded people? Is there an effective way for this?
I think when you're talking about like-minded people, it's I think I've listed down the 4 points which are very important. One of those points is that you need to work with those people for a while. I think most of the people or the entrepreneurs that have started their companies are colleagues, or either they have worked on their products, some or the other products in their previous years, or they are they have some kind of basic understanding about how what technology, what kind of people they are working with. So I think there should be some linkage or some kind of basic understanding which is important. Otherwise, it becomes a big problem.
Perfect. So there's one question from Dr. Mohammad Rafi, which says, any single platform is there that their ideas can be checked whether marketable or not, and whether that idea already exists in the market or not. And if everything is available, then can they get perfect mentorship and guidance?
Okay, so I think so idea available or no. I think this again comes back to the question of Google Design Sprint workshop that I was talking about. So I think you need to so the Google Design is basically the platform which helps you to check whether this idea is marketable or not. So when you look at the whole program and the structure, you'll understand it's a very simple program, but a very effective one. We also plan to do those kind of workshop in the coming days. So we have also started a community with the name of By Design. In By Design, what we are doing is we are actually doing design related workshop sessions, etc., for startups. And with those, we are also planning to have some kind of session around design sprints. So that's something in plan. But design sprint in general will help you to figure out whether this idea is marketable or not, and whether you should pursue this idea or not.
Perfect. So we'll take 2 more questions, guys, because we don't want to take too much of Tushar's time. Amit has asked, again, this is a similar question to what was asked earlier, but how do you handle an idea which is already there in the market, but I am sure that it will require a different way of tackling. And how do you find the required person who can believe in it? This in particular is in reference to the construction industry, where you cannot produce a product beforehand, which means that there's no POC available in this. Yeah, so.
Okay, so I think if I see, I think I've covered that point in my earlier bit. So if it's a pure clone product, if you're building something which is already there in the market, and if you're just going to sell it in a much better fashion, I don't think it's a best idea. Make something which is and definitely if it was a best idea, it would be selling like crazy, and people would be loving that product, and there is no need of such more products to be built. But if that product is basically something which is very unique, then you might want to pursue that. I think I will not recommend people to build something which is already there in the market. Have some kind of uniqueness towards that product, and that is how you will create your differentiator. People will want to use that product.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks. So last question is from Sharvari, and Sharvari asking, how can one start a successful business journey where the market is very traditional? For example, real estate, where a lot of people still prefer traditional ways of working over, over the unconventional. So how do we address something like this?
Okay, I think so. Here again, the idea. So you need to think about. The market first. So always. So you don't have to think about yourself. I think this is the most common mistakes which a lot of founders usually make. So you have to build products which the market needs and not something that you need, right? So obviously there could be chances that your product, you have built a very fantastic product, but there is no market for that. So you need to understand on what the market needs and then build your product around it. So if you're trying to build something which is which the market doesn't need, I think you're going to have a hard time to kind of sell that product. But if you're building something which is the need of the hour and people are wanting to use that, I think that is something which will sell very faster. To be honest, I think there is no successful way to do something which people don't want. So you could end up spending a lot of money on the marketing side on things, but if people don't want that, I think it's very difficult to sell.
Correct. So thanks, Tushar. As a going away present, I have one question to ask you. This question is more on the startups economics, which is going on right now. We are seeing a lot of funding coming in, a lot of various sectors. So fintech is one of the few sectors which is growing. We are seeing a comeback in resurgence of IoT. We are seeing a lot of investments into real estate also as of now, real estate tech as well.
Yes.
What are your thoughts in the next 6 months of the kind of businesses that will do well, and maybe give a brief about why, if that's possible?
Okay, so I think the timing right now is very much for startups and majorly the software startups. I would say that this is going to be a very critical point for a lot of SaaS companies which are building solutions which are going to increase the efficiencies of team, productivity of team. And this is going to be a lot of, so Zoho, the inbound CRM apps like HubSpot and all of these are going to play a very critical role in these kind of things. The second industry, which I think, payment is one of them, as you already mentioned. Payment is booming. Like India is becoming a top country in terms of using those fintech ecosystem. But the second and the third most thing which is growing is the gaming part. I think there are a lot of companies which are coming up in the gaming, the esports, and the entertainment ecosystem. So I think the third big wave is going to come around the gaming and the entertainment side, I believe. So if startups, or if you want to focus something on that, I think that's definitely going to be a great solution. And now there is a chance now, because of the whole COVID and the pandemic situation, the government have started working extensively towards making the health infrastructure much stronger. So if you think about healthcare systems, or if you're thinking about some kind of good healthcare products, this is the right time, because I think in the few years, I think from now to 5-10 years, I think a lot of focus is going to be towards the health and all of these things.
Thank you, Tushar. Thank you very much for taking time out today and educating the students and the startups who are on this call. Thank you once again, to i4C, my entire team, for having a wonderful event. Yes. Thank you to the participants for coming and taking part and sharing questions. And hopefully this knowledge will make you a little more aware of what the future is going to hold for us. As I said, this is a series of 6 webinars. And each webinar will strictly focus on one part of the startup journey. So if you guys want to get into your own startup or actually be part of a startup, then this webinar is for you. And lastly, I want to thank Bootstart for powering this event through their network and through their channels. Thank you all so much for all your time. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Deacon. Thank you.